to the AI Biz Hour with Andy and John. And today is Friday, April 18th, 2025. And this is the place, AI Biz Hour, where destiny and providence meets and converges. Time and a place. This episode is brought to you by our sponsors, Virtual Synergy Inc. If you could free up hours in your day without sacrificing productivity, successful entrepreneurs know the secret: they delegate. If you're looking for an employee to handle your administration work, there's no better employee than a virtual assistant from Virtual Synergy Inc. Virtual Synergy Inc. connects you with skilled human virtual assistants who handle your admin work, email, scheduling, so you can focus on what truly matters: growing your business. No stress, just expert support on demand. Stop managing your tasks and start leading your business. Hey, Andy, how are you doing today?
I'm good. It's lunchtime on Good Friday here in California, so looking forward to the Easter weekend and all the celebrations, and looking forward to getting some interesting questions today and seeing if what and how we can answer the questions. I see Ray's here and Timo and Abney, and we're broadcasting live, so all of those things are up and running and exciting.
Absolutely. Ray dropped some really amazing knowledge yesterday. And actually, I had a meeting with Jason today, which was really exciting. That there's a lot of cool things that he's doing that I think are going to be relevant for a lot of people here on the space in terms of he. I'll let him speak about it. But yeah, I don't know where he wants to what he where he wants to land that plane here. But I went down the rabbit hole of what Ray talked about in terms of trace, eval, and optimize. I don't know. Did you get a chance to look at that, Andy? Or
Yeah, no, last night was my son's birthday, and then today I've been quite busy trying to do the end of year, budget projections and project setups and all that kind of stuff. So I haven't really had much chance. I did see the note though. I'm interested. Let's schedule something for next week. And it's all good. I've just been kind of busy. That's all.
I totally understand. Totally understand. And yeah, Easter weekend, there's a lot going on. Everybody has a life outside of this space, and that's a good thing. And yeah, I mean, I just find that I'm busier and busier. I don't with this idea that we're going to save time. All I think it's going to do is make us have more to do. And I see Timo's here and Dylan's here as well, and Avin. What would you like to do, Andy? You want to go into a little bit of
Well, you know what? I saw, okay, so Scoble reposted somebody's really detailed kind of XML vision of a prompt. And I saw that, copied it, ran it through 6 or 7 different AI versions for something that I'm working on, and came back with surprising results. I'm going to go find it and post it in the purple pill so everybody can see it. But if you forget, or you're not sure what's happening, or you can't find the space in the future because you didn't bookmark it, you can always find it on my YouTube channel or on my LinkedIn, or sometimes on my Twitch channel. So these are all recorded and broadcast live, so you can go back and see them, especially on YouTube. And by the way, you should totally sign up for John's newsletter. What John does is he records the entire show, then does a transcription of that, and then summarizes everything, puts it into his newsletter. So you can get the newsletter summary of what happened today, and then go back and listen to the details. You'll kind of have an idea of what's happening, and you can hear the details. So I strongly recommend that you join John's newsletter to get all the latest AI stuff from this AI Biz Hour. And by the way, I think, John, we're only going until 1 o'clock today, right?
yeah, I've got a meeting at 1 o'clock, so I got a quick cut off there. Apologies, but that's just how that happens. You start to get a little busy, and then you get a little more busy. So I see Joe Dell's here, and Timo, and Ray, and Abin, and Dylan. So it'd be great. Some people want to grab the mic. Um, And Andy, I would like to hear a little bit more about that prompt. And I'm looking over Robert's post right now. Yeah, there's kind of a lot going on. You ever get that feeling?
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got so this week they came out with a new OpenAI Grok 3 Mini, and then there were a couple other updates. Claude and Gemini 2.5 is going even faster, and then the stuff we're working with AI and tech in schools and AI tutor and the GPU. Well, first of all, I didn't know about Comfy UI as being a browser-based object-oriented interface. So if you don't know what Comfy AI is, it essentially it looks like the Unreal Engine IDE or any of the other IDEs where you grab the function and then you just run the links directly to it, and then you can pass parameters and details through that instead of writing the code where you have to get the complicated uh, grammatical format based on the language you're using and get the grammar correct with all of the curly braces and commas and details and all of the arguments for the function in the right order in the right space so that it can produce the results. This is a graphical interface, but it's browser based, so you don't have to download anything. It's called Comfy UI, and Comfy UI is a way to add all of these functions and pieces, um, as well as building a virtual APIs to different engines, rebuilding an LLM or rebuilding an AI model. That was the coolest thing that I saw in the last few days. So there's 4 or 5 or 6 topics I'd love to hear people talk about if there's something interesting along that. But but specifically, since I don't see any hands or anybody grabbing the mic, the the model that um, the prompt that Scoble referenced, right? So he reposted another guy, and I forget the guy's guy. Oh, I'll find it and we'll give him credit. But really cool prompt, really interesting ideas about how to write multiple phases, thinking of the prompt and making it go step one, do this step, then step two, do this step, step three, do this step. All about creating gaps and identifications inside a business model. So if you're doing consulting, professional consulting, you can say, here's what I'm trying to accomplish. And then it'll go through and say, well, here's the overall market. Here's what your cohort's going to do. Here's what the current activities are. By the way, according to Reddit and blah, 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 and all these other things, here are the biggest gaps that are identified in that particular market segment. And then here are some things that you could create to fill those gaps and and to overcome that, whether it's like for my particular piece, it was about there's a lack of accountability in personal development. So when you do personal development, you typically do it as a watch this and make the changes yourself, or watch the stuff and engage, but then everybody freaks out and they don't like doing it because they don't want to engage and embarrass themselves in front of everyone else. So there's an opportunity there to create customized models with AI. In other words, okay, you want to be part of the cool thing. Here's a survey for you to fill out. And because of what you put in the survey, we'll create a custom plan for you. And then we'll follow up with you on a frequency basis to make sure that you understand what's going on, that you have all the right tools in order to build things forward. So that's how I used it today. So I'm going to go find it while you're talking, and we're let's get Timo and Jodel and Abney and Ray
Absolutely,
up
absolutely.
here, up and
I'm not
Dylan
gonna. I'm
and
going
and
to.
Abney. Yeah,
Yeah,
everybody grab the
I'm gonna
mic.
I'm gonna start to go bonkers if we're the only ones talking. It is actually open mic Friday, and we both have to leave. Andy and I have to leave at a hard stop at 1 o'clock, so we only got 40 minutes left. If you want to go to the Purple Pill, I posted comfy UI models and workflows. I love to collect information, and there's a doc that I made public. I would love it if anybody wants to take a look at that and tell me what you think of it. And we did have somebody who almost grabbed the mic. There, Joe Dell's here.
Hey,
Excellent.
what's going on, guys?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going. A lot happened this week. Crazy stuff. One of the cool things that caught my eye just was announced today is Korea. they have like released like a whole 3D environment thing on their website now, so you can, instead of just creating 3D images, now you can make 3D objects with full environments.
What? How do you spell that? Is it Kling or no?
K K R KREA. I can share it to the space if you want. Um, it's really
Please,
cool.
please do. Yeah, no. This week, um, through tech and schools, are you with that as well, Dylan? We got a GPU with Comfy UI, which is really I mean, we haven't even gotten close to the to using it for anything really powerful, but it looks like an insane tool, and that has a lot of potential. Very exciting. Right? So I've been doing SEO, digital marketing, for 15 years, what have you. And in the beginning, there was hosting companies, and the worst hosting companies ever. They're like HostGator and all these companies that like really were horrible service. You call and there would be nobody who's ever built a website, and just all kinds of gobbledygook. And now I use Get Flywheel hosting, but it's part of this bigger company, WP Hosting, I think it is. They host something like 8% of all the websites on the internet, but they do managed hosting, which is great because going back in SQL and dealing with that, for me, it wasn't my skill set, and I just found it very frustrating. I really didn't enjoy it. But with the managed hosting, which is great because they take care of the security, and I've had sites that have been hacked to smithereens, and it never cost me a penny more. They would go in and fix it. They fix it within 24 hours. They still do that. And it just saves a huge amount of headaches, and it's really wonderful. But I see that kind of coming now for AI agents, where you are going to have these solutions, and I've already been privy to some where you go in the back end, they take care of the managing it, dealing with it, and then you can put your either agentic AI agents on it or what have you, and they will manage like the dashboard. I see that that's going to be coming up a lot, and it'll be interesting to see how all this stuff plays out in terms of how businesses adopt, and then where So currently, I was having a meeting today with somebody about a industry that is very hands-on. It's in the real world, and it's a super important industry, and people are just getting it's within the healthcare, and people are getting older, and that trend is not changing. And so no matter what happens, that's a pretty safe bet industry. But there are aspects within it that can be helped with AI, what have you. But I think that moving forward, those that kind of focus on AI, where it can you can show that it can save money. I have a someone I know who works in a large institution, and I've been talking with him for, I don't know, since I started the show, and talked to him about AI and stuff, and he's on a board, what have you. But they hired this one company, and they hire it every year, and the company charges like six figures or whatever to do this report, and he was able to get the output on Grok. And so there are going to be these things that where you can prove in the real world where there's a cost savings, or there's a way to save some money, and you can do that. And but you have that within a business that's in a real world business, and I think that that's going to be a place that's going to be a safe place to do business. It's going to be there for you. It will outperform other industries in over the next 3 to 5 years, in the sense that it's the real world, and it's gotta be done, but you can show that there are case studies of money being saved, and I think that's something that, it's going to be interesting because I believe there's going to be a lot of gobbledygook and a lot of noise and a lot of promises that may or may not be able to be fulfilled. But if you can find, industries that are very much real, that are needed, where there can be solutions within that field, I think that that's going to be important for that'll be a safe space to be in. In other words, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think of this. I think the time frame that we're in right now, it's sort of like the .com boom, where that's all everybody was talking about is get a .com, get a domain name, all this stuff, right? And we're at this time though. It's like when the internet came out. I remember, you know, getting the internet and kind of being like, well, what do we do with it, right? Like there was a time there where there's a couple of things you could do. You had your AOL, you had a couple of things, but really it was like, what do we really do on it? There's a couple of message boards, and it was kind of there's this weird in between phase. We're kind of like that with AI. We see all this promise, we see all this like where it's all going, but there's especially for the general public, this sense of like, okay, well, what can it really do for me in my life besides rewrite my emails or whatever, or automate a couple of small things. So we're still very much in that time period. But it's just going to be insane. It's going to be, the whole agent thing. We're all talking about agents. Agents is not going to be a thing in a couple of years. It's not. It's like it's just not going to. No one's going to care. It's going to be so implemented into everything we're already doing. Like now we're building agents piece by piece. I bet in a year from now, if not sooner, you're going to talk to ChatGPT and it's going to build you your own personal agent for whatever your needs
Yeah,
are.
but I mean, but the thing
Right.
about that on a business level, you can't depend on something that you have no control over. And anybody who's been on the digital marketing world or the internet for 10, 15 years realizes that again and again and again, products come out, they give it away for free, people can use it, and then it gets rug pulled. They just take it away, or they'll charge a whole bunch of money or whatever. And so to put all your eggs in a basket on something that you can't totally control, I think is a little this it's based on
I don't.
track
Yeah, I
record.
don't think they will. But I think the people who are pushing all of this, they're going to be pushing it into all their products, right? So Microsoft, Google, Meta, right? They're just going to be trying all this stuff out in their products, which we're all using, or whatever a lot of people are using. So that's like already like the trial ground for a lot of this. So you're going to start seeing, oh wow, Google has an agent for my Gmail now, or whatever, right? They're just going to start pushing it into their products that we all use. I think that's where we're really going to start seeing it first. But of course, yeah, most people are not going to let an AI agent do a bunch of stuff for them without any oversight. Uh, yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Juan Carlos or Jodell, do you want to add anything? And anybody else? Jason, Ray, Timo, anyone want to grab the mic? Jodell, how are you doing
Hi.
today?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I'm actually doing my bank reconciliation, so I'm just listening to this as if it was a podcast, but I couldn't ignore the call out. So, yeah, I love this conversation. I love just listening to it and just really getting a lot of knowledge. What I always look for is like prompts that I can use, and I did hear Andy say about finding the gaps in my niche. So I've just started up a consulting business, and yeah, it's really like trying to figure out what those pain points are and using Chat GPT in that way. But as for agents, it just made me think of you know, like I do have a bunch of staff, and people they're reliable in one way, but they're a lot like what a GPT agent could end up being, in the sense that they grow their skill set, so maybe they want more money, they give you no notice, and they flake out. So I don't think there's a guarantee in humans either. I think we're just used to that, and we're used to the pain points in humans. So yeah, I would say that I think that AI is still probably going to go the way of the agent. I think it's a lot more human than we probably give it credit for in that aspect.
So,
That's just my 2 cents. Thanks for asking me to talk.
so Jodell, I just have a
Yeah,
question for you. Do you have a minute for a question?
of course. Yeah.
So, could you see in what you do if there was a dashboard available where you could create 2 or 3 agents or start to test the waters out to see if you could have them do certain things, and then maybe you would have one person manage multiple agents or something, if that could all be on one platform, would that be something that you'd be interested to look in terms of trying to scale what you're doing?
Yeah, for sure. Right now, I have my general manager that does on Mondays. I get her to do a weekly email, and that just crawls through a bunch of the different programs that we have and spits out those numbers to show all the managers what they've done over the past week, and where they're missing the ball. And I use the color coding of like red, yellow, and green, so they know if they're in the red, they're really missing the mark. So all that would be amazing to have that automated. And the other thing that we do on the Fridays is red flag phone calls. And so there's checks and balances of they met these different things throughout the week. And if not, it lets me know that that manager is struggling. So that's two things that I could definitely see automated with an agent. It would free up my general manager to do other jobs than, checking in kind of thing. So yeah, I definitely can see where it would go. I just, from here to there seems like a huge chasm to me because I would have to build it. I'm
Well,
trying to get someone from head office to build something just for my non-drive-through restaurants, but it's like pulling teeth trying to get someone to, they've already, yeah, anyways.
but so have you started, like, so one thing I've done is I've built agents through my AI tutor, or you could do it through Chat GDP, that show proof of concept of what I want accomplished. And so like I'm kind of, so if you're doing certain prompting and stuff, are you kind of like coming up like, oh, it can do this, and then seeing that it can do it?
Um, Yeah, so I'm not using any AI agents for any of this. We just pull it ourselves. They do like head office will come out with different summary sheets, but it's just in one area. And so my weekly summary is a lot more comprehensive. It pulls like their schedules and hits what their productivity was. It's pulling log percents. It's pulling a whole bunch of different things from a bunch of different sites. So yeah, I don't, yeah, I would have to build something that would have access to all those sites, and I'm not 100% comfortable giving access to that.
I understand, but yeah, just I guess the main thing is like, are
Yeah.
you going to Chat GDP and creating a prompt that kind of gets close to solving a problem that you're thinking of automating at some point?
Oh, no, the closest thing I've done is put in my store policies. So I had like store policies that were very wordy and like 5 pages long, and I know my 16-year-old hires are not reading them. So I just made it a lot shorter. I just fed it into ChatGPT and just said break down every subheading into 3 bullet points and give me 5 games and that they could do at the end that will help reinforce the messaging of the policies, and it spat it out, and that was awesome. So that kind of stuff I get and I understand and utilize. It's that one step further that is a little more daunting.
Well, that's cool. Well, I think that solutions like that will probably come out of this room sooner than we know. So that's great to hear, and thank you for sharing that. If you want to put anything in, but I think that there's that yeah, there that those kinds of things there'll be answers to that sooner than later. Alvin or Juan Carlos or Dylan or Andy?
Yeah, I was curious. What was the main premise that we were kind of discussing as I hopped in here? Something about not putting our eggs all in one basket. Is that about AI in general, or is that about a specific company, or what's the full context there?
So if you are creating solutions that are based on Chat GDP, and you're creating that solution based on, let's say you've got an AI agent that uses Chat GDP, and you've built a prompt and it all works, that in my, like, I've been doing marketing for 15 years online, and Google had this thing called Google Plus, and it was huge and everybody was involved, and they had a wallet, and you could do courses and you could get paid, and it was just a big community. And then they just rug pulled it. And I believe why they did that is they were giving all that away to collect data, to understand a whole bunch of stuff. And so, like, currently we're at a state now where these LLMs are free next to free, but there's a reason for it. It's because they want the data. And so at any point there could be an event where they could charge a bunch of money. They could, like, it only be available for enterprise companies, who knows what. That's always a possibility. And so the point that I'm saying on that is, like, to build something like totally on these platforms at this point without having a backup where you have a local thing or you have some other solution just in case of the one that you're using right away isn't there all the time. You got to be prepared for that kind of stuff. And on the internet, that stuff happens more often than not. That's my thought.
Yeah. Okay. So in that regard, I kind of agree, but I will say that when it comes to any kind of technology, I look at two different components, and it's the company's ability, or rather the producer's ability, to house the product. So basically, server space, and then the actual traffic of the product. So we'll use Google Plus in that regard. Google obviously has the server space to house that product. The product just didn't have the traffic, especially compared to the growing rates at the time of Facebook and Instagram. I think that was already out, and then I think Snapchat was also a growing social network at the time. Anyways, on the note of AI though, let's go with vibe coding and stuff like that, right? I use Replit. I've got 16 different apps that I've made. Five of them I actually like. One of them is a website. I own the code, like the code. I have it in my GitHub repository. But then it kind of like it brings up the question there, and that's why I bring up the server space, because it's like, all right, well, am I now concerned about GitHub going away? Because that's the only place I have my code. I guess I can download it to my actual computer. I have one of my apps. The whole file is there from one of the repos from like 30 days ago, I would imagine. So I would still have to update it. But I guess when it comes to AI, there's two things that we could talk about it, and it's the company itself. Like, are they going to go away? Do I have to be worried about whatever I build on top of that? But then it's like, all right, well, now we have competition, so it doesn't really matter. And then on the pricing side, okay, like we've already kind of seen that with ChatGPT. They went with $200 for the operator. Well, okay, everybody else stayed at the same relative price of below 50. Shout out to X for going up to 50, which is part of the inclusion of Grok, but it's still the social media platform. And then it wasn't until Manus came out that, once they left beta, yeah, they also have a $200 model. I'm not familiar or aware of other AI platforms that are aside from Devon. I think that one's like $500 a month or something like that. There's another example. Like, we had Devon before, but there's still all these other affordable solutions. So I guess my point is that I'm not so sure that we have to be concerned about what I would call platform risk around AI, because the technology is not going away. It's definitely here to stay. And so, to your point, sure, maybe it is data that they want. And if they're truly after the data, then it's always going to be in, whoever's best interest to ensure that that data is accessible to the consumer as well. So there's only a certain price point that ChatGPT can go up to where they won't experience a drop off in customers, and then also the trade off for their relationship of that is going to stay the same. That's literally why they came out with the operator. That way they could, just have another excuse to charge a bunch of extra money. But in my opinion, outside of the actual operator component, there's nothing about the $200 a month version from ChatGPT that justifies the actual price. You can get the same quality of output from O3 and O4 now. So there's just literally no justification aside from they're like, hey, we got this agent too, by the way, that justifies the other $170. So I'll leave it there, but I don't know if we have too much platform risk to worry about. And I think that in terms of the evolution of things, unfortunately for a lot of these producers, right now the consumer has a lot more power than the producers do. And we'll see how that actually comes to play. But the fact that everybody can now produce stuff, like the whole DeepSeek thing, which literally caused a small market crash. The whole point there and the whole issue there was that DeepSeek came out of nowhere and made a cheaper version of ChatGPT. And it was like, oh, well, now everything over here is inflated. So uh, I'll leave it there.
I think you can do, if you so in the purple pill, I posted the prompt. I found it and put it on there. It's called it's from Matt Shummer. I don't never heard of him, but the prompt is really amazing. I ran it through a couple times, a couple different ideas, and it clearly identified a number of individual gaps of, I did one of things that I knew, one things that I didn't. But the interesting thing is, if you take the framework of that prompt, you the framework of that prompt is by definition an agent. It says do this piece first, hold it, then do this piece next, then do this piece, and then grab all that stuff and then create some kind of inference model to produce some output. So by the way you do the prompts, you can generate that same kind of model. It If you put it on, if you take that same prompt and you put it on your local machine, and then you use an API to connect to your own data lake instead of having it just do its own internal inference model, it may take longer because you got to use the power of your own compute, but you can do the same thing yourself. So um, the orchestration layer is simply one AI agent calling, or one LLM instruction set calling another instruction set. And you just define the first instruction set to say, call these three things in a row, and then take all the results and put it over here as this output. Right. So it's not, there's no magic in the quote unquote agent other than it can then just instantiate itself, which is an object oriented construct where you take the same thing, the same code, and then you create copies of it. That's called instantiation. And you take the first one and say, make a copy, then do this with that. Then when you get the results, put it over here, and then do it again. That's all an agent is. And we've been providing coding, enterprise level coding stuff in that way for decades. And now we're just doing it using an LLM as the interface as opposed to typing code. Remember, my view of this is just just a natural language processor, an NLP or NLM, that you can use to ask the thing to make the code to do the execute the functions you're looking for. So that's all that's really happened. Nothing new, nothing that is happening right now that's new. What's happening is that you can get the information in a much shorter period of time in a much easier way. So they solved both the where do I go to get the information problem, the time it takes to do that, and what is the actual answer. And they shorten both of those things with a high level of precision and quality. Is it perfect?
As far as coding goes, I use GitHub, but I also have multiple backups like on different hard drives and my own personal server because you don't want to be reliant to the cloud for anything really, whether it's your family photos or whatever. Don't do not rely on some server that you have no control over for stuff that holds value to you. So make backups, keep them on your hard drives. Um, and also, I would hot tip if you are vibe coding on anything, working on any sort of project, make multiple backups so you can always go back and start from where you were. Obviously, you can do that with GitHub, but do that locally as well. It really makes a difference. And I will say that an interesting thing too is like we don't necessarily need agents for everything too. There's a distinction between automation and what an agent is doing, right? So there is a lot you can do with tools like make.com or Zapier that are really kind of plug and play where you don't necessarily need an agent for it, but it can be just as powerful, if not more, right? The agent sort of goes in and is like the mind, which says, okay, now we're going to connect over to your Gmail, and now we're going to choose to connect over here. Or we're going to, right, sort of orchestrating, but you don't always need that, especially for business. Like some of the automations I've done for a company recently, they thought they wanted an AI agent because they thought that was the word you throw out. I was like, well, no, you really just need the standard, the standard pipeline to push all your data through that is going to be automated every time, right? So definitely play with that. And if you guys haven't messed around with any sort of automations or agents, you can do it for free at a lot of different services. And NAN is the big one. A lot of people are using for agents. You can pay for that, or you can also host it on your computer for free, which is what I would recommend. And it's super powerful, super powerful. Connect whatever you want together.
Absolutely. And Andy, what do you?
Hey, again, agents. So it's always about solving your business problem, right? It's about what do your customers needs or what do you need, and how can you then use these tools to solve your problem, right? It's automation is automation is the last step. The first step is, are you solving the right problem? And most of the time when I'm consulting with my clients, whether they're a government agency or an organization or a person or a executive or whatever, they typically have a they fall into this trap. I have a problem, therefore, which is my better choice, A or B? And the answer is, wait, hold on a second. And first of all, is that really the big problem? Is that truly the problem, right? It's kind of like if you step on the scale and it weighs and it's a number and you don't like the number, do you instantly go, well, I'm going to stop eating sweets or I'm going to stop it? Wait, hold on. Right? Is that the same number that happens every single day? Or maybe yesterday you ate some stuff and you feel all bloated today and you got a bunch of extra stuff going on. And that's not really the number over an aggregate for a week. Maybe you're solving the wrong problem. Maybe you're going after, maybe that number is okay, right? Uh, it's we have a tendency to extremely short-term solutions based on what we imagine the problem to be. Maybe the number, the like to use the dumb weight example because it's the easiest one for everyone to get. Uh, maybe that number is fine. Maybe your body composition between muscle and fat isn't. Maybe you don't like the way you look in your clothes, but your body is going to naturally be a certain, like, I'm 6'2". There's never ever a chance in the world that I'm going to be 100 pounds again. Never, right? I would be skin and bones, probably dead if I was so anorexic I only weighed 100 pounds. But weighing 200 pounds is perfectly reasonable. Weighing 300 pounds is obese. Somewhere in the middle is fine. To use this very stupid example about how we use AI, then what you do is you say, well, this is how tall I am, this is how much I weigh, this is what I think, this is my size of my clothing. Hey, if I wanted to get to a different size clothing, what would I need to do? What type of things could I consider? What are the problems that are going on? And maybe AI can give you some ideas of which direction to go, right? But AI can't pick your diet, pick your food, whatever. It can, but you still have to eat the food and be okay with the current results. AI is just a tool. It's a fancy hammer. It's really cool at breaking stuff and building stuff, but it's just a hammer. It doesn't answer the questions. It doesn't give you the solution. It just gives you how to think about the solution or how to what actions to take to solve the problem, right? AI in itself is like a computer. It doesn't do anything until we put information into it. It's like a microphone, it doesn't care until I talk. It doesn't matter until I provide value to it. And so I think oftentimes business people have a tendency to rely on the tool to give them the answer. So that's what they do. And the truth is, maybe, but what you do is you take your input, you get all of the output, you build a plan, and then you execute the plan, constantly measuring if you are going towards your objective or further away from your objective. Right? And that's the way you lose weight, that's the way you get in shape, that's the way that you make more money, that's the way that you get in debt, that's the way that you have good relationships, it's the way you have bad relationships. It doesn't matter. It all that stuff is the same. The the leveling of the playing field right now, AI can answer questions for you or give you things to think about faster and more precisely than any other tool we've had at our exposure.
Absolutely.
Our yeah. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, so the other day Ray was talking about various ways to, when you get these AI solutions, to measure them and kind of understand what they're doing. And so, like, you got to go to first principles and workflows, whatever seems that is going to move the needle. But one thing that he brought up that I thought was really interesting was a term called brittle AI solutions, and that's where they're high maintenance, inconsistent performance, costly upkeep, limited adaptability, poor scalability, dependent on specific conditions, lack of formalized structure, limited testing. So I mean, there's quite a lot of road to go in terms of um understanding where and when it's best to use this stuff, and when it's not. You're not just creating another problem that go to your point, that didn't exist, and now you've got another problem. So yeah, there's not a standardized way to transfer a task into an AI solution at this point yet. I mean, at some point after it's been done for 3 to 5 years, it's going to be like, oh yeah, you do this, that, and the other thing. But and then also, a lot of businesses have their own unique way of doing things. There's not a uniformed system within businesses. I mean, within an enterprise company, yeah, it's a big business, and then you can find these uniform systems. But the majority of businesses in the country aren't enterprise sized businesses, they're small businesses. So
Right. But one of the one of the biggest fallacies is that, like, okay, let's use, everybody knows Microsoft Office. There's Word and Excel and PowerPoint and Outlook. Okay. So they all have this massive amount of features. Most people use mm, between 8, 10, 15% of the feature set in each one of those tools. But even in a small group like this, it's not exactly the same feature set that John would use, that I would use, that John Carlos would use, or Dylan would use. It might be within a range of 30% of the total capabilities, but we're only using 8%. But it's my configuration is slightly different than John Carlos. And so in the software world, you have to constantly add capabilities so that you get the users that use the 8 or 10% of the capability of the software. And that same concept is what happens with the AI tools in LLM. I'm using the same chat GPT that you are, or that John Carlos is, or Dylan, or whoever. But my prompting is different. And the iterations of details that I have provided to it are different. And I have a personal LLM that's on my machine that isn't connected to anything else. And I'm doing the same thing with it. I'm essentially by default using the same prompt and the same results, and then revising the results and revising the results and revising the results so that it gets closer and closer and closer to the output that I desire. So in kind of a strange way, you can train the models to iterate down to something that's closer to your expected output. But my expected output's different than John's, and John's is different than John Carlos and Dylan, and so on and so forth. And I think that that is a concept that we need to remember, right? It's a shiny hammer. Andy swings the hammer slightly differently than John Carlos does, right? That's just the way it is. He's probably more precise, more power, but we still get the job done. We're using the same hammer, slightly different ways. So you always remember that when you talk about tools, because tools are only the things we use to make the problems go away faster. And that's it, right? We have the same problems. We always have the same problem. The problems are, how do we find customers? How do we tell them what we want, what we have for that offers them, that can solve their problems? How do we convert them into being a customer? How do we track them? How do we provide either the goods or service that they asked for or that they paid for? Then we have all the compliance things. Yeah, pay for this, and sign up for this, and make sure you've submitted all your stuff here, and blah blah blah, all this stuff. But those things are all true. How Jodelle does it for her business is probably different than the way I do it, probably different than the way John Carlos does. We still have the same problems. We just kind of solve them all in a different way. Some have 300% the amount of data that goes into that, solving that one part of it. And somebody else has, 1% of data. It doesn't matter. It's still the same bucket you got to solve, but we just use the tools to solve them in different ways. Just kind of a utilization thing.
Absolutely. And yeah, we're this is open mic Monday. I don't see anybody grabbing the mic. I'm gonna have to, or
You
actually
mean
we should
Friday? Ask
Friday.
anything
Yeah,
Friday.
Hi,
So, what are the
Andy.
questions? Abney,
How is everybody doing here?
very good.
Yeah, I was going through the workflows and the models, and I was like, I was opening them in GitHub. Really cool, I would say. Um, but yeah, weekend is the best time to build something, and we are using AI to vibe code and building something and to solve a problem that the customers need to get solved in their businesses. So yeah, AI is changing the game. It's making our tasks so much easier. We're building agents, we're building models, and now you have the MCPs, which are making things much more easier. Grok just released an API today, which will prove to be another game changer. So yeah, the race is heating up. So yeah, I can't wait to see what's next.
I have a question. I'm curious how y'all are using AI for like lead generation, because I see a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's great for that," and then when you see what they're doing, it's really not that amazing. So I'm curious if you guys have any insight over that.
what do, what do you? Can you be a little more specific?
Sure. So, like, looking at lead generation, a lot of people are like, "Oh, there's these great websites you can use, blah blah blah," and you look at it, and it's really it's just a database of leads that they sell you, and you can automate an email to them. It's like, okay, well, that's not something special, right? Like Apollo, or some things like that. Um, Other ones are just scraping LinkedIn for you and then giving you their names, but there's no actual contact on there, and that's so just I'm finding like lead generations being kind of like lackluster.
Well, remember that the purpose of every business is to provide something people want at a certain speed with a certain cost. Okay, so you can create the exact same thing that what you just defined by using the right set of prompts in any one of the models, and you can get the output. All they're doing is saying, we've already done that for you. Here's how much it costs to get the work we've already done. So you're shortening the amount of time it takes you to get to that same answer. You can get to the same answer. And so whether it sucks or not is a matter of how you're using it. Because if you're using it to validate as a data set the prompts that you're using to generate new data, it's not a bad thing. It's just if you're using it to go out and try to get those customers to buy your stuff, yeah, maybe that's already a saturated market or saturated list. I don't know, but just a couple things to think about there.
Yeah, I mean, when uh, I haven't really gone out there and tried those tools yet, and I'm looking forward to it. But you still can't just press a button on it. I mean, you got to build relationships. Uh, Anytime that you get crappy kind of leads or stuff you can't verify, I mean, you get what you get. You still can't spam emails and phone calls, at least in North America. You got to be very careful. So
And
it'll be interesting to see what really can be done with it. But I have heard people, it's very successful, but I haven't done it myself.
do you have more data, more information around that, Dylan?
Well, like, I know that obviously with ads, right? With ads, you can like meta ads or whatever. Obviously, you can target very specific people and run ads to them, right? And some of the things I've been finding, like Apollo, some of these other companies, these businesses, they're sort of selling that service, but the other way around. Like, we can get you in touch of your potential customers, via our AI system. But then you look into it, and it's really just they have a database of all these public businesses with all their information that they're just selling you access to with sort of a loosely like veiled thing of AI integrated into it. So I'm like sort of so
That,
it's like
that's the noise. That's the noise.
yeah,
That's like they've been selling those kinds of email lists since since they could before it was an email list, but it was some kind of list, and it doesn't mean, if it's garbage, it's garbage.
yeah. I guess I'm curious as to finding ways to get leads with AI in the new way, since people are obviously using it to market and do other kinds of things like that.
The one piece, Dylan, that's missing from the lead is the personal connection or trust, right? If I sent you an email today, you're probably like, oh, Andy, I know Andy. You might read what I have to say. But if you get an email from whatever, some other unknown name, and you get that email from them, even if it's a lead, you're going to have to overcome who is this? What do they want? Why are they sending me this email? In addition to then the content of the email and whether it benefits you or not. But the trust that's created by putting out the voice and the content and talking about stuff and adding value to people's lives, that translates into open rates. If there were 100,000 people listening to this space, and then John sent out an email to all 100,000 people, more people would open them than if John sends out an email to 100,000 people today and they don't know who he is. So I think that personal connection and that ability to engage at a micro or macro level in today's world is what's going to be the difference between whether they open your email or they buy your offer or download your software or go to your restaurant, right? I think all of those things are going to be they're going to be some contributing factor.
Absolutely. And there's always, with emails, there's a standard open rate and conversion rate. And yeah, you got to send out, emails. Historically, emails convert better than any other kind of marketing. It's better than anything. So, but that also depends on if you have your own email list and if you're sending out just random emails that you buy that have no connection to those people, then
Right,
that's
right.
kind of the
Yeah,
bottom of the barrel.
I guess I'm just finding my own struggles in starting a new business. Like when I did only video production photography, like I would just cold call people, and I was great at getting clients. I mean, yeah, you have your your shallower seasons, but it seems like now in this new age, like everything's kind of just completely different. People don't even want to answer the phone anymore. Like it's I find it funny that you cold call them. It's like it's an interruption, right?
Do you answer the phone?
If I don't know the number, no.
Exactly. In the past, it was a black box. The phone rang, we pick it up, not knowing who it was. Now we have more information, and we have to overcome that knowledge gap. And so you need to warm up you need to warm up the list or warm up the prospect from now on. And I think I've said it in the past, but face-to-face communication is the premium at this point in time and will be in the future, because everything else, including this little, space / podcast that John and I do every day, this will be able to be replicated. You literally can take the last 10 episodes, grab them together, dump them into Notebook LM and say, recreate this as a podcast, and it will, and it'll sound like John and me talking. It'll do that. And here's the thing, you won't know the difference. I won't know did I really say it that way? Listen, you see the number on the title, 100. We've done 115 episodes. I'm pretty sure I don't remember every single thing I've said over 115 episodes. Right? So we've done over 300 hours of this show in the last 8 months. And the only reason to bring that up is to say, there's a lot of information that's been shared, a lot of stuff that's good, a lot of stuff that we didn't know, and now we know better. And even the stuff I'm saying today, I'm only saying it because I think that's true. Maybe tomorrow I find out it's not. I mean, Josh Josh Long has an amazing space where he talks about all the news and explains it in a super awesome way. You should totally follow Josh and go to his podcast. He usually does them on Fridays, but or Mondays. I forget, Josh. You tell me which one it is. But if you listen to his podcast, he explains all this stuff. And I'm like, oh man, I totally blew that last week. I got it wrong. And then, hey, I'll correct myself. But given today the information we have, we're sharing what we know today. And it's good as far as I know. And if I'm wrong, correct me and we'll say it better tomorrow. And every day we just, like a missile, narrow adjustments till we hit the target. And then the problem is the whole target's changing all the time. Every day there's new models, there's new updates, there's new ways to think about it. I'm going to give you a practical example for everybody listening. When you first heard of a LLM or AI or Chat GPT, which is probably what you heard of first, or Grok, when you went and saw it and you tried to type in the first thing you checked, I'm pretty sure that prompt was pretty basic compared to what you can do now. And that means that you have learned how to utilize the tool to give you better results over whatever time that is, from this morning till now, from 8 months ago till now, from 5 years ago till now, whatever. And so as we continue to work together and work through that, you're going to find you will get better and better and better at using the tool. Just like the hammer example. If John Carlos and I use a tool at the same time, maybe we're proficient at the same point eventually, but I'm pretty sure he's better at it than I am. So what? Right? It doesn't, I don't know. I, I have no prowess with a hammer. I'm just saying. I can type. Yeah, I can type pretty good, but hammers, I don't know. We'll see. Anyway. So, okay, we've got 2 minutes left. Is there any last questions? Anybody want to ask something? Bring up the last piece before John closes us out. Well, then I'm gonna tell you all. Thank you for joining us on this Good Friday. I hope that you and your family have a happy Easter over the weekend, and I will see you next week. And I'm going to turn it over to John to close us out. Tell us about our amazing sponsor and give us whatever last words he has.
Hey everybody. My computer's freezing a little bit here and there, so apologies. Just want to thank everybody for have a great weekend. It's been a really good week, and it is Friday. I have an appointment, so I got to go like right now. But looking forward to having this next week. Thank you for everybody who shared and helped with all the great information. There's so much to always keep abreast of, and it's a full-time job, just kind of understanding what's happening. We're all doing the best that we can, and everybody here is really, I'm so feel so fortunate to get to know everybody in the room, because it's a great thing. So thanks to X, thanks to the gods and the stars and all that other stuff. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you next week. Thank you so much for showing up, and we're gonna have a good time next week. All right. Bye bye. Have a great weekend.